Hello, my retro friends. Thanks for finding my channel, Mike the Retro Realtor. Today we're going to talk about movies.
Please get out of my Van Halen t-shirt before you jinx the band and they break up.
And not a specific movie. We're not doing a review. We're actually going to talk about a genre of movies. Something I like to call nostalgia bait movies. There's only a handful of these movies so far, but they're starting to come out more and more often. We're going to see how it's done right, how it's been wrong. When talking about these 4 movies that I'm going to specifically mention, we're not going to talk about the plots. We're not going to talk about the actors. It doesn't really matter. We're going to talk about if it makes you feel nostalgia at all, if you get that little tug in your heart, if it works or if it doesn't work. So we're going to start out with one of my favorites, and I'll be honest with you, it was not well received, but I like this movie. We're going to start out with Pixels. Now, Pixels is just a silly movie. The plot, again, is almost nonsensical. It doesn't matter. We're going to talk about the appeal of the nostalgia in this movie. What I like about Pixels is, yes, it's set in current times, but the story is basically all about the 80s. It's all references, and I can live with that. I like that because they do it right. They're all talking about arcades and video games, and there's a couple jokes in there here and there, and they do throwbacks to the 80s, and I like that. For 25 years old, they did a good job. The soundtrack is right on par. All the music is from the 80s. It makes sense. Now, I know a lot of people don't care for this movie. They think it's stupid. It's a silly movie. I'm not going to argue that, but I do enjoy it because the nostalgia is spot on. So credit where credit's due on that one. Pixels is actually a very good version of a nostalgia bait movie. Thumbs up on that one. I do like it. It hits all the major points. Soundtrack, atmosphere, writing, and the references all fall in line. So there are cameos by Max Headroom.
Well, look who's here. Hubert the Traitor.
Madonna and Hall & Oates. So the cameos worked. These were all little videos of them, so weren't the actual individuals. And I know Max Headroom doesn't really exist, but it does work. Hats off on that one. The next one, and this one went way over top with all the Easter eggs and all the references. Again, it worked. Ready Player One. I will say a little bit about the plot on this one. You know, it's a dystopian world and people are miserable. They live in their computers. Not that far off today. I mean, you walk through an intersection, half the people are looking at their screens. So, I mean, that's spot on. I'll give them credit for that.
James Halliday saw the future, and then he built it. He gave us a place to go, a place called the Oasis.
Again, all the references, perfect. It's over the top, and yeah, they had like several hundred of them, but who cares? That's what you're paying to see. Again, the soundtrack, spot on. I mean, it just hit all the notes. The atmosphere was perfect. The writing, again, it was a plot that's really never going to happen, but it still makes kind of sense. And that was basically set slightly in the future, but it works. And of course, everyone is like talking about stuff from the 80s again. All the Easter eggs actually help move the story along. So again, it works. Ready Player One is definitely one of my favorite nostalgia bait movies. But my favorite nostalgia bait, and it's the OG in my opinion of 80s nostalgia bait, done in the 90s, was The Wedding Singer. The jokes actually write itself because they are so self-aware. They're just trying to say this is an 80s movie, and all they're doing is throwing out 80s references from 15 years ahead in the late 90s. We were still pretty young at that age, and we still remember all that stuff. The cars. I saw a Chevette, DeLorean. The music, of course, they nailed it. The soundtrack is actually excellent. And then, of course, they're actually throwing out little jokes about Trump and Ivana never getting divorced. New Coke is what it's at. They made that world look like the mid-80s. I mean, over the top. I mean, they even hit the advertisements on that. And of course, the story, they could have set the story pretty much any time, but they decided to do it 15 years prior to when the movie came out in the mid-80s. And it actually really, really works well.
Please get out of my Van Halen t-shirt before you jinx the band and they break up.
That being said, The Wedding Singer also did it really well. It's probably my favorite nostalgia bait movie. So now the counter to my argument. Not all nostalgia bait movies are good. And of course, I'm only scratching the surface with the 4 I'm talking about today. I'm not talking about this movie because it's a bad movie. Bad movies have a certain spot in my heart, but this movie doesn't have a whole lot going for it. We're going to talk about The Electric State. It came out there and it was supposed to be set in the 90s, which I was kind of excited about because I'm yet to see a good nostalgia bait movie set in the 90s. If you guys think of one, let me know. This movie didn't even feel like the 90s. Yeah, you saw some old school computers. The plot didn't need to be set in the 90s. They just did it. And I think that was more just a cheap cash grab of trying to get Gen Xers to watch it because, oh, the 90s, you know. When I think of the 90s, I think of bright colors, Saved by the Bell, and Bill Clinton playing the saxophone.
'Cause I'm saved by the bell.
This had none of that. It was just dark, and they spent so much money on the cast. It was way over the top. You can still enjoy a bad movie with a bad plot. This plot was just kind of stupid. I didn't care for it. It was over 3 hours long. And one thing that just drives me nuts, the soundtrack was even off. How do you get the soundtrack wrong? You can go on and look at Billboard Top 100 for every single week of every single year, going back to God knows how far along. But their big rally song, the big let's get out there and go kick some ass song, was Don't Stop Believing by Journey, set in the 90s.
Taco, hit it.
You didn't think of like a Chumbawamba song or No Doubt? There are upbeat 90s songs that would have been perfect, but Don't Stop Believing? When did that song come out? 1982? I even have the Atari game Journey Escape. Not a great game, but you actually have an Atari version of that song playing throughout the whole game, which is kind of cool. But I digress. I mean, they even screwed up the soundtrack. I mean, how do you do that? So just a quick wrap up here. I mean, a good nostalgia bait is very enjoyable. Pixels, Ready Player One, and The Wedding Singer are not great movies, but they're very enjoyable because they did a very good job tugging your heartstrings. And it just reminds you, it puts you in that happy place from the 80s. Electric State was on its way to be in that class. And for the 90s, which actually I would have really enjoyed, but they just did such a terrible job. And they weren't even getting the references right. It was just a dark, nasty world. It didn't remind me of the 90s at all. So that being said, what do you guys think? Say something in the comments. Let me know what you think of the phrase nostalgia bait. Is that too negative? Is there a nostalgia bait movie that you would like me to talk about? Not necessarily a movie that was made in the 80s, a movie that is set in the 80s, or in the 90s, or even the early 2000s, or one set in the 1970s. I probably won't have much of a frame of reference on it, but you know what? I'm willing to look at anything. So please reach out and tell me what you guys think. And if I'm off base with any of these statements, I want to hear about it. That being said, keep it retro, my friends. Thanks for watching. We'll talk to you later.